We're jumping in with some Tactica, Inner Sphere, long-range missile carriers. One of my favorite machines. But don't be seduced by the volume of missiles that it can put down. You need to have that Tactica. If you don't, if a Jenner gets back there or a medium mech gets into your back ranks with those LRM carriers, they're going to go down extremely fast. So jumping in just to framework this, we have some mechs that are dedicated LRM carriers. We're not talking about something like a Cyclops or a mech that has a 20-pack on it that gives it something to do on the way in, but its primary focus is something else. Something like the Longbow, which is a favorite machine of mine, you're taking all of those internals and dedicating them to LRM launchers. However, you're paying a premium for that. The premium that you're paying is, generally speaking, mechs have greater mobility. They are not as vulnerable to critical hits as vehicles are, although certainly if you've been playing Battletech for a little while, there's been times where your mech took a crit, blew up, smoking boots and all that. But that is the battle value that you're paying for. And also you're paying for some other possible weapon systems on top of that for the increased tonnage. When we jump over to vehicles, you pay less, but that offset is the fact that vehicles are a lot more vulnerable. So the LRM carrier, much like the PPC carrier, the Shrek PPC carrier, you're taking a very heavy, dense weapon system, multiplying it out by 3. The standard Inner Sphere missile carrier has 3 20-packs, real time, putting down multiple missiles. But the trade-off is paper-thin armor, not great mobility, and you're locked in to that firing position. So once you get into position, you really want to stay there. You don't want to be moving or pivoting. Extremely vulnerable. So we need to have that offset and that understanding where we're trying to put down something maximum on the table, but we don't have the abilities of a mech. But we're saving in battle value, C-bills, currency, tonnage, whatever we're going to play. When we put down one LRM carrier, the fact that it has 3 20-packs means right away you have redundancy built in. There's this idea in Battletech, right? 1 is none, 2 is 1, 3 is some. If I'm firing one PPC, I may hit, I may miss. Probably going to miss unless I'm really close range and cut down the modifiers, unless I'm rolling hot. But if I fire 2 PPCs, well, that increases my chance of hitting. If I have 3, I'm probably going to hit. If I roll legendary and hit with all 3, or if I can cut down the modifiers and the distance and hit with all 3, that's going to be a massive amount of damage. So we are looking for redundancy. Certain machines, certain mechs have that built in, or I don't want to call it spam, but you can get redundancy by spamming things out and taking multiples. The LRM carrier is interesting because putting just one down on the table, it is vulnerable. We got to keep that in mind. But putting one down on the table means you've got, for a low battle value buy-in, I mean, it is expensive for a vehicle, but compared to a mech, it's cheap. Low battle value buy-in, you've got 3 20-packs. Now, if we put down 2, or if we put down 3, that's now an extreme force multiplier, and we want to utilize that. I find with the LRM carriers, it's not something you really take just to have. You do have to build a strategy around it. And if you can build a strategy around it, the sheer number of LRM missiles that come out, that force multiplier of all those 20-packs, it's very potent. It's very powerful. So I wouldn't buy one and just kind of have it going with my Lance. I would want to build something around it. I feel like I'd be better off taking, if I wanted a generalized vehicle, some sort of multi-role hover vehicle that could keep up with the Lance. So we're going to take 2 or 3. I find myself taking 2 carriers or 3. Have been there low battle value games where I want to just take one for the lulls. Yes, I mean, I want to get all the miniatures that I can on the table, but 2 or 3. Once we get over 3, I find that I'd rather invest my battle value in other aspects of my Lances because we need a couple of other potential vehicles and support to make this work. So 2 or 3 LRM carriers. Now, we're going to push that out. We want to take advantage of indirect fire. I actually prefer indirect fire. It's going to add some more modifiers. You need a spotter. But having 3 LRM carriers parked somewhere firing every turn that your opponent can't easily get to or fire back unless they counterfire with some indirect, but they have to have a spotter, that's some potency. So the question is, who's going to spot for you? A couple of examples would be, if I'm going to have crossover where they're going to be doing multiple things, taking infantry in Karnovs and dropping them off or getting infantry into strategic places, that's one way. The advantage with this is you're going to have the infantry being utilized for other things, claiming objectives, securing a flank, just adding something so when your opponent's lances and vehicles pass by, those infantry are going to be able to shoot. They're doing other things. But you need a decent enough spread to build up that network, and you need a delivery system. If I was going for a dedicated spotter, an example might be something like a Locust that's very, very fast, that's essentially going to spot, or a Warrior. I find the Warrior attack helicopter is a great spotter to be able to see that and shoot. You want to have a system dedicated to that indirect fire. There might be some other mechs or lances on the table as they move up. Your opponent shows themselves. You're engaged. They can call in the strike. There will be other opportunities that, of course, if they happen, you'll utilize them. But we want a dedicated spotter so I know I've always got some eyes on the target for those LRMs. Now, I'm dropping all those long-range missiles real time. You can't let me do it. I'm not going to be upset at you. I'm not. You're going to try and shut me down. You're going to try and blow it up. You're going to try and hit it. Absolutely, you can't. You can't just let it sit there. So I need something that can protect that. The easiest thing is to have a bodyguard type machine. Something that, so if your opponent gets really, really close, you can blast them. What I find with that is a demolisher tank or some other tank that's got some bite that I can park next to it, project that force out, and if I can't stop you from destroying my LRM carriers, I can at least cripple you. I never want to trade 1-to-1, but if I have to, I will. But ideally, I can push that off. So you're going to need something adjusted for battle value to utilize that. In bigger games, sometimes what I'll do is I'll take my 2 longbows and I'll take my 2 LRM carriers or my 3 LRM carriers, and then I'll park something. This is a high battle value game. Something like a Warhammer or a Thunderbolt back there to guard that. Other times it might be ring of infantry or maybe some hovers ready to go. You need something to guard, and you'll adjust that by battle value. If something does slip in, then you do have multiple hundreds of missiles. You're going to have modifiers stacked against you. You're going to have minimums. Don't discount the fact that you could turn those LRM carriers and fire away all those missiles, plus with your units that are blocking and other aspects that can push forward. You are able to do that, but when you do that, that means you're not firing at other targets on the table, direct or indirect. I'd rather have my missiles shooting that barrage every single turn. I would say I would not count LRMs as auto-includes in your list. I define an auto-include as a mech or a machine that just you could put it down in any situation and it's going to excel. I don't know what mechs to take. Take a catapult. You're going to be fine. Take a Wolverine. You're going to be fine. It's not an auto-include, but LRM carriers can force multiply and are extremely useful in your miniature collection sooner rather than later. You want to grab some of those. You want to be able to incorporate some of those into the Tactica. Again, putting down massive, massive amounts of real-time long-range missiles.